Are we still two down the speakers on this side then? So you guys are gonna have to yell?
You got it. The L is up and running. You're live.
Alright, well, this is the legislative committee. It is Monday, May 13th, and it's a few minutes after 5 p.m. I'm here, Councilmember Shannon Pugh.
Here.
Councilmember Katie Lepard-Shu.
Hello.
Is there any need for corrections, suggestions, or concerns on the previous minutes?
I wasn't here.
Not that I, no.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Carrie, do we have any correspondence? Katie, just to let you know,
Yes.
we actually took our 6 items on our agenda and put them in this order that you see now.
Okay.
Okay. So that we get a handle on this.
Something, sure.
Yeah. And not that I want to continue with that training, but just trying to get through all this stuff, it just seems like I need to,
Oh, and I have more when we're done with this, so don't worry. Let's see here.
okay. Did you have any questions on the ethics legislation?
Honestly, I have not spent as much time with it as I would like to, so I don't have any questions off the top of my head. I appreciate the change in inclusive language, but I think just some time to marinate on it would be good for me. I was hoping to get caught up on some of the conversation that you had in previous meetings where I wasn't able to be here.
Sure.
If that's possible.
Overall, one of the concerns was updating our local law into what the state has.
Okay.
So when you look at Municipal Law, Article 18, there's a vast difference between what was there compared to what we have.
Okay.
So it was a matter of just updating, beginning through. And so that's why we moved from basically 1 page to 11 pages.
Okay.
And we tried not doing that, but found that it just was simpler to get to that point and then just get past it.
Okay.
Good catch, Carrie, on page 7. You know how many times I've read this thing and just,
It will start with one.
yeah. David, did you happen to have a chance today to kind of go through this draft one more time? I sent yesterday.
Yeah, again, there's, again, it's because it, to a very real extent, it's a restatement of what's in the state statutes. I have no objection to it.
Okay.
Okay. Then that, sounds great to me.
David, when do you think you'll have finalized, or are you good? Eric was mentioning maybe we could lay this down if you were.
That, if the committee tells us, either way, again, this is essentially what it's gonna look like
Yes.
with, just with whatever corrections you want to make. As I said, I have no philosophical problem with anything that's there.
Okay.
So even, once it's agreed by the committee to lay it, we'll lay it.
And Shannon, the only thing that didn't get there, and I just couldn't find anything, was the nepotism. In my notes, you had raised nepotism.
Yeah.
I just, I didn't find anything.
So about Seacook County, 'cause they had something in theirs about it, right?
Yeah, and I went digging through and I know I saw it one time, but I couldn't find it.
Is this one? Oh. So did you want like time to look at it, or you just
Let
wanted
me,
to?
let me read it again and see if anything jumps out at me.
Right.
Thank you.
I guess while you kind of working on that, Shannon, you also brought up, for mediators, so that's on page 6,
Yes,
number.
Yep.
Section 21-12.
the certified mediation services, yeah,
Okay, so you're good with that?
yep. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Do we
What do you
want to
think of that
define
wording, Mary? Are you
stagger?
okay with that?
So my question that honestly was just pulling through my head is, you want the initial appointments to be staggered, not the terms?
Correct.
I was just gonna say, so
Yeah.
maybe we can like elaborate the stagger piece. So like, terms of the board members, appointment of the board members will be, or we can't force it to be staggered, like,
Yeah, your initial.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, so we're forcing it. Stagger it.
Yeah, it's a conversation we've had here for the council also. Probably should.
So is it good enough, just initial appointments to the board, be staggered 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, with subsequent appointments being?
That's,
Yeah,
that makes sense to you, it makes sense to me,
it does.
it makes sense to Lauren, that's what we need, so that makes sense to. I always think if I was a judge and I read that, would I understand what it meant? If the answer is yes, then I'm good.
So does this provide for like indirect effect?
Give me a hint, Gene.
Like, yeah, how would I explain it? So the conflicts of interest prohibited, section 21-3, says that someone can't, it would be a conflict of interest if you have if you're the appointing authority.
But let me stop.
But what if
Let me preface something
Okay,
first so you can get a sense.
Yeah.
Almost everything that everybody does has a conflict of interest to some extent somewhere, because you can't exist in this community.
Right.
You can't both be a city resident and have no contact with anybody about anything.
Right.
Somebody's your uncles, cousins, brothers, niece,
oh,
friend,
especially
neighbor.
mine, yeah,
Yeah, especially neighbors, friends, went to high school, went to elementary school, you know.
Right.
So there's almost always a conflict. The issue is, what is a prohibited conflict of interest?
okay,
So what we're always defining is, at where is the bar? At which it becomes, at which what you're doing is going beyond the scope of normal interactions in the community.
that's helpful,
So,
thank you.
Which also brings me back to the point of wanting some sort of something in here about it.
Yeah,
well,
nepotism, we don't have a nepotism policy? We do?
but the other thing is that you have to be careful about nepotism laws, because, for example, if it's nepotism and there's an economic benefit to a contractor or something, then you can do that if it's employment. Then you can say that they can't vote, but then what? Grandchild, great-grandchild, second cousin.
Well, we're talking about the Board of Ethics, so I wouldn't want the mayor's grandchild on the Board of Ethics.
I'm sorry. Right, I know, that's what I'm saying, is it just define it, whatever it is that you choose, but you have to define, when you say, well, we don't want any nepotism, what is nepotism? Define it, tell me, is it just spouse, children, parents? Is it nephews, nieces, cousins? You just have to define what you mean by the term nepotism, and what it's gonna mean in this particular circumstance.
Right, so this is just specifically for this Board of Ethics. So I would say at least second, if we're talking about this, at least second. So like, not just, yeah, like, on the level of the.
We have a nepotism policy already, don't we?
For conflicts of interest, as far as like assignment of contracts and voting on contracts and things like that.
But not in the hiring or
But not-
supervising.
No, we know for employees, but that's not what we're talking about here. Like, are you not,
Well, doesn't the Board of Ethics address ethical considerations within whether it's elected or staff?
Yes.
usually that's vetted by HR before you ever hire them. You have to disclose what your relationship is to any other city employee.
But if it's not prohibited, then it doesn't matter, even if it's disclosed, you can still do it.
That's what I'm saying, it is about supervisor. You can't, if the hiring can't be done by the superior, so Greg can't hire his son.
But could
Right, but
Could
Kate, I
Joe
can help you
tell
out.
him?
I can help you out. We have had experience in a department where 2 employees got married.
I'm fully aware of that, and that worked out really well, didn't it? So,
or like, for example, if Greg is not hiring.
the point is
Joe's
raising
hiring.
that as an ethical, that was a determination that was made,
That's right.
and I can guarantee you that we could not have legally fired either of them as a result of them getting married. Because that would have been a gross violation of their constitutional rights to associate. So I don't see the issue of nepotism being raised as an ethical issue that would ever come in front of the board, because it would have to be done on a personnel level, because
Sure.
either under contract,
Gotcha,
either it's legal or it's illegal, it's not an ethical issue.
gotcha.
But what about in the appointment of board members?
That's what I'm saying, if you want to say that when which is why it was always good to simply populate it when you had an issue, as opposed to populating it when you don't know who it's gonna be. So if it turns out the person that you appointed it's their son who's being raised, then you have a conflict, and I would think that the person would.
Can we just say they would hold no other office within the city?
Again,
Or
if
just be on
that's,
staff?
if that's something that you wanna have in the statute, sure, it's just define it the way you want to define it. But you have to define it.
Right, okay. Do we need, section 21-4I, which is about school districts? I understand that this is derived from the state statute, but could we strike that? Since it doesn't apply to us.
Yes, let's try that.
21-4I.
Yeah.
And then Carrie, to your point on page 4, we could identify those. I was reading it as 3A, 3B, 3C, 3E, because those are all examples of what's described in 3.
Nope, that's perfect, my brain did not go there, so.
So, I mean, if you feel better identifying it as 3A, 3B, but that's just changing the layout that we've done on this document. That's your.
At first glance, it looked like it was just hanging there, so.
Yeah, probably because we turn the page, right? It's not together.
It's not.
And then on page 7, obviously, we're looking at the city clerk's office. But
Good catch. Well, what do you think? Are we,
Hold on, I'm on page five. Okay. Okay, so you were saying that Board of Ethics established, you're gonna clarify the staggered appointment thing?
Mm-hmm.
okay, Jim,
6, under Article
Yeah, they're gonna,
2. That's just to get it started,
yes,
so they don't.
I think Katie used the word, or Carrie used the word initial, is that what you're saying? Initial?
Initial appointments.
Mhm.
Gonna run it by Katie, but initial appointments.
Where are you
page 6,
Old page
21-11.
Old page
Okay.
6.
I'm changing as you're talking,
Okay.
so I don't know what the numbering got.
Says the terms of the board members will be staggered, but it's gonna get
There you
changed.
go.
It's the highlight version.
Do you have the old
Yeah.
version?
I don't know. That's why old page 6.
Oh, she handed out a new.
Is
No,
it
no,
this
no,
one where
this
everything is?
No,
page
not
six.
that
This
one.
is new page
She's
6.
doing corrections as we speak.
But Greg's is different than mine.
Yeah, Carrie doesn't care about you, she left the old one in. Sorry.
Really?
You don't have the new one here?
My hair.
Sorry, but it's just.
Okay. Yeah, no, toss that one because
That's, I like the
We-
advisory.
Carry on.
That's cool.
Carrie, Greg needs a new one. You got an old one.
I'll give it to him.
I have just this one, sorry.
Yeah, yours is good. Yours is
Okay, alright, cool.
Now
But I
I
saw
saw
it,
it.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so
So
page
what's,
6.
what's the verbiage that you used?
Initial appointments to the Board of Ethics will be staggered, consisting of 2 3-year, 2 2-year, and 1 1-year head terms.
Perfect.
Read.
Subsequent appointments will be in compliance with the charter for 3-year terms.
Oh, that captures the clerk of the board of representatives, okay. That makes sense, I was like, we have that a second.
That's my culture first.
Yeah. Very cool, then.
I get bored.
Yeah, I know.
I'll tell you what, I know Carol, and she is very similar to Carrie. They are two peas in a pod right there. They're ahead of you before you recognize that they're ahead.
If you put cucumbers and particular pickle juice long enough, they all taste like that kind of pickle.
Yeah, I'm not touching that one.
I would say, I take it.
So we're gonna have to call our first ethics board, who's gonna stagger. Just a-
I'll appoint
Alright, so do we think we have it, or?
Let me just look at that appeals thing one more time.
I think we're pretty good, that's just the nepotism thing. Which, you know, I get the argument, but if we just have something in here about like,
Well, then what is that appointment with the mayor of common council approval, okay? Okay,
it could even just be that, you know, that when mayors, like, the mayoral appointees will not be of at least, you know, second generation, or like second, you know.
I feel like it's kind of like a dog chasing its tail a little bit, because they would also be subject to the ethics policy, so they would have to disclose interest. I mean, just just by having disclosure of interest in there, it kind of makes it so that you can do that. And I think the other thing is like, there are 9 people who have to approve of every member of that board, well, really 6, because you have to have the mayor and then 5 council members.
Right.
So there's, I think, a reasonable kind of stopgap there to make sure that someone's grandchild doesn't make it onto the board of ethics. And then it does say too, if you become aware of any conflict, so that kind of solves the future problem. Like if your dad is elected as mayor and you say like, okay, well now I have an interest, so I can't be on the board of ethics anymore. It's kind of self-correcting this document.
If everyone's being honest.
That's true.
If they're being that.
But Lauren, we here, she'll write it in the paper, people will know about it, you know what I mean? So, I think it'd be hard to slip on that.
And sadly, you can't mandate honesty, that's what laws are. If ever you mandate honesty, no enforcement, that would be necessary.
I think it's good though. Glenn, you did a lot of work here.
Oof, there's like 7 hours between 2 sessions, it's like 4 hours yesterday.
You did your thing.
I love how people now appreciate what it's like.
I was like, where is David?
Oh.
Why am I doing this?
You volunteered.
It wasn't
I
gonna tell you
did,
no.
I one step in that group.
Anytime you're willing to take up.
Well, I said that, but
More than
Shannon convinced me that I should take over the filming ones, and we're
So,
gonna go over that next, so.
Yes.
why did we, take out the distribution mandate, why is that stricken?
It's duplicate.
Oh, is it?
It appears earlier in the policy.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I love it, good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. A plus.
Do that all and sign it in the statute.
Okay. The next ordinance, so should look at is the filming, which I was working on this yesterday. To be honest with you, I don't know if that's the right word to use on this one. Because we're looking at commercial production of video and audio, which could be in many different forms now. And I just don't know if filming is the right word, but that's not.
I would leave it for now because it's generally accepted, and when the time comes that we call it digital reproduction, we won't call it digital reproduction or something, by any means whatsoever, whether electronic or by medium or by.
Right, that's where my head was rolling on this stuff going on.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
So Carrie has gone through this, the format looks much better than what I turned over to you guys yesterday, so there you go.
Thank you, Carrie.
There's a little discussion on, well, one, I didn't page this one.
Okay, so you took out town employees,
The city there, yeah.
Yeah, but,
Take out,
I'm not positive that, say, time parameters within this legislation matches up to our form.
we got the 30-day, it's gotta be, the council has to act at least 30 days before.
Right.
The application has to be in 30 days before, so theoretically, someone could submit an application 30 days before and it'd be in compliance with the statute, and we would have 0 time. So it seemed to me that the council were gonna really require the council to have 30 days of consideration. The application ought to be in at least 45 days before, so that something like that.
No.
I would be fine with 2 weeks of council consideration.
So I was gonna suggest special fees for less than 30 days, like a rush day.
It's a good idea.
There'd still be enough time though, so
We'd still have the opportunity to at least hit it at 2 meetings in 30 days.
30
That's what I
days.
was
So if we started, they dropped it in the beginning of June. Does that give your office enough time to go through, because we've got to see the police chief, the fire chief, the DPS superintendent.
I like the 45-day recommendation better.
And
I'm being completely
Well,
honest. The person who's gotta do all the work.
Yeah.
right, and then,
Closing streets and
right,
What's the earliest?
midnight to 4 a.m.
correct.
things, and a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Yes, so on, section 106-2 subsection C, let's change that to 45.
Yeah, I don't need to be a nudge, which is what I am, but if you look at 206.2, it says no heavy equipment be permitted on septic tanks or leach fields. I hope we don't have any septic tanks or leach fields in the city.
Well, you say that, but I know there's some. So I was like, well,
There may be one too.
yeah. One of my houses on Chain Street, we just found out that we had an old system. So,
At least 2 in the 6th ward that have located.
so I was gonna strike it, but then I was like,
What is, if we were to do a hypothetical, like, early thing, what would be like the fastest turnaround?
Can we do it in 2 weeks?
But we will, I think there's a provision in here, if I remember correctly, so we can waive, the council can
Council can
waive the
approve
term,
it.
so.
yeah, additional fees deemed necessary and appropriate, that's subsection E of 106-2.
Is there any sort of, I'm sorry, I haven't really reviewed this one
And then,
at
and then
all.
speed up the time, I think there's a provision that says that we can waive the time limitations if we choose to.
D sub 5 of 106.2.
Is there any sort of, no, as far as I can tell, notification for like people in the area, like they do for the.
They're required to notify,
Oh,
if I remember correctly. Where
Because
is it?
if the common council issued, and I would hope, but again, we can't mandate hope, that common council members would say, hey, there's a house within 200 feet of where you wanna do that, and you wanna have bright lights and heavy equipment and whatever, till 10 o'clock at night, like, I'll check with them and see how they feel about it, but if there was like a mandated noticing saying, that would probably be good. Similar to like when there's a ZBA, you know, the postcard comes out or whatever, and that can be on the applicant, maybe they have to provide us proof.
Yeah, but
On the
I thought Glenn
application.
had it in here. Oh, it's on the application,
Oh, it's on the
that's where I
application.
saw it.
Right.
Okay,
Can we put it in here also?
I think that's good idea.
It can just be the same wording, but if it's just reiterated in the statute, I think that would be good.
I was gonna say, I thought
Applications
that's right.
and statutes don't get changed as much as applications do.
So you're thinking of adding a section to filling on private property?
Filming at all.
The notifying of people. It's in the application, there's a line about it.
I would just say filming requirements, right? We have the certificate of insurance on here and it's duplicated in filming on public property and filming on private property. I would just add G to both of those. Applicant is required to notice and obtain, or notice, well, the thing is, like, I feel like they should notice the people, but that's not really enough. Like, we have to give them an opportunity to come. Just like in the ZBA, where you go, I don't want my neighbor to expand their whatever, you know, closer to my house. I think we should give people the opportunity to come and say, I don't want that to film next door to my house. Because if they notice them and they say, and you know, and that's enough, you're still gonna have angry people if there are people who don't want to have it. So if there's a way to facilitate that,
To notify
people within 500 feet or whatever.
residents within a certain distance.
Yeah.
That's a long.
Oh,
That's-
I don't
that's a
know,
big
how long
one.
is it usually?
200.
Zoning is 200.
200, okay, so 200 feet. Just consistent with whatever we
Within-
do for that.
Right, but they should be notified within 10 days prior to, or
Well, I
be
think it should
notified
be before the
that there's a
approval.
public hearing?
Right.
No, because that actually, the form now is to where we're not going before the council on private property, on public property, we have to come to the county council.
Yeah, So maybe just proof of notice, and the notice must contain directions on how to oppose or whatever, which could be submitting in writing to the city clerk, or appearing before the common council. Something like that.
Who's doing that notice?
The
They are.
applicant. But they have to submit proof of the notice. Like a photocopy of what went out, and bill in the post office or something.
So let's cut this out. So if they're using a street, say they're on my street, County Street, they're going up and down the whole street. Are you saying that that's not good enough, that 100 feet puts them over on Pearl, puts them over on Cleveland?
I think they should let people in the immediate area know that
Yeah.
something that is unusual is gonna be happening in their neighborhood, and give them the opportunity to say, I don't want you filming here. It's my neighborhood.
At least just put them on notice.
Just put them on notice and tell them how they could say, cause if the city clerk gets 50 letters that say, no, we don't want this, you know.
We let the common council get 60 letters.
Well, because we were saying that it's not gonna come to council if it's on private property, right? Was that what I was just understanding? So it would have to be up to the determination of the city clerk to issue a permit or not.
And by what criteria did she make a determination? Is it enough people shout loud enough, she'll deny it? 10, 3,
Good question.
her husband is a council member?
So,
Or the
yeah. So maybe it goes to, maybe they all go to county council. Maybe it's a big enough neighborhood disturbance that they all, I mean, I just think if my neighbor wants to shoot a movie, I should have the same right to say, I don't really want them to do that, as I would if they were doing it in the street. You know what I mean?
What if they have a party?
Well, yeah, call the police.
Only if they're violating the noise ordinance. People don't need applications to have a party of 40 people at their house.
But like light and noise and.
If it's after 10 PM, then they have to come to the county council.
But our noise ordinance is right where I'm at.
No, it is not.
Yes.
No, I think it's.
Don't ask the city attorney when noise ordinance starts.
You were under the same impression as me.
With the exception of certain restricted activities, yeah, I was under the same impression.
Reasonable,
Start looking at 10 PM.
reasonable level.
Well, you can have it on a reasonable level, but the issue of when does reasonable, what's reasonable at 4 PM in the afternoon is very different than what's reasonable. at 11.
Exactly, that's what it's referring to. I'm pretty sure. I live in the heart of noise ordinance-ville.
I understand, but when you say that yes, there is a noise ordinance in effect, but the criterion by which you determine whether or not there is a noise ordinance violation depends on the time of day.
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is, you were saying that about doing filming, is if there were lights and everything, presumably there wouldn't be lights that was dark, unless it was dark.
Right.
So if they were doing it during the daytime.
Katie, what do you think about this? G, notify residents within 100 feet of filming site prior to the start of filming by no less than 14 days.
I think 10 days is fine.
But the thing is, after you,
Well,
once you
they do it
notify
with
them,
council though.
as long as notifying them
Like,
is satisfactory, is that?
They would have to bring it to the very next council meeting.
The concerns.
Yeah. Or they can submit it.
They could submit it to their council member, so that it doesn't go to the city clerk, but at what
But
point?
right now, the council doesn't have the opportunity to deny them a permit based on complaints by the neighbor.
Right, exactly.
So if you giving them notice is, if you're logically following the process here, giving them the notice satisfies the filming company. Because if the way you have it now, the council does not specifically approve, and the council doesn't specifically deny, then the fact that given notice and can complain about it will have no effect.
Right.
And
Right.
If
That's
that's,
what I was saying.
so is that the good news or the bad news? Are you satisfied that purely giving them notice is sufficient?
No, that's why I said, I think that filming on a street is an unusual enough occurrence that there should be an opportunity for people to come and say, I don't want this to happen in my street.
Then if they do, does the council have the authority then to deny the permit based on the complaint?
Why not?
No, you can understand. I don't care. What I need to know is to understand logically the progress. If you say that no permit will be issued unless prior to it, there's 10-day notice to all the residents who have an opportunity to be heard before the common council before any action is taken. That's what I need to know. If that's what you're proposing, then propose that. We
That
can
is
go
what I'm
forward.
proposing.
We'll talk to the chairman.
Yeah, so that would be similar, if I'm thinking this right, that would be similar to say the electrical board denying somebody, we did that once, right? We, as a council, we heard kind of both sides of the license. So, yes, I think the council would have it very good. If we stick to 14 days, then I think we hit inside the cycle of the common council. If we go to 10, we might miss it.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And it might be tight, I mean, cause I was saying, like, we had a 3-week month, or
Three meetings.
No. where there were 5 weeks in April, and so there were, instead of 2 weeks in between, there were 3 weeks in between, that's what I meant. I didn't explain it well at first.
You're fine.
So there might be times where it doesn't work out. But we would know that, and we have a discussion.
Right, I mean, we've had filming, and so far we haven't had any complaints that I know about.
Right, most people are kind of jazzed.
So, I think this is not a static document, it can be changed later on, so. If it turns out that we really need to change it, then we can change it. But I'm just concerned about, are you guys good with 2 million?
Oh, yeah,
So, I'm good with the 2 million for insurance, but I don't know if you guys are,
I mean, I don't know enough about.
typically it's $1 million, I do it.
$1.2 million per incident, 2 total. It's $1 million/2.
So,
Although $1 million bucks are more used to be.
I know, I'm thinking like, if, yeah,
I would be inclined to do 2 too.
is that a double negative?
It's a 2 total. I'm serious, $1 million bucks is not.
No, it's not, that's why I'm fine with the 2 million, I just wanted to hear what Katie and others
yeah,
thought, I was good with that.
I mean, I just think about the fact that we were, lending an ambulance to a film production not too long ago. I mean, what that would cost if we had to do that, so.
Yeah, so I was fine with the fixed assets, it was the personnel that I had issue with. It's a bigger cost. Than city staff. And I'm not talking about the hourly rate, I'm talking about the
Could
Sure.
I comment? When you're talking about filming on private property, it could be a huge production with lots of people, or it could be 2 people talking to each other quietly, like a mother and a daughter. So there's a wide variation.
Yeah, and that's why I changed the wording from the reference legislation to commercially produced, because that's what our concern is. So when you're interviewing someone that's not really commercially produced, right? This is folks that are getting paid for it.
Well, that's a good question, like,
I've gotten paid for it thousands of times in the past, I don't get paid for it now.
right, well, I'm just thinking about, like Oxbow Media does
Well,
news all the time in the city.
Well, I was gonna raise that with relation to 106.3.
Okay,
No commercially produced movie, television program, documentary, on and on. You can't do it without a permit. I violated that today. I
oh, is it?
shot a video of a reporter doing a stand-up on public property.
It's funny, I was mentioning the news organizations would be exempt, but I don't know if are they considered commercial?
No, channel whatever in Utica comes here sometimes, and
Right.
Yeah, but I
So
don't think
that's-
that's,
that's
not-
channel
I
has
don't think
something
that's
set up
commercial.
like a couple years ago on Main Street.
I mean, you could exempt news, news collection, again, that's a First Amendment thing.
They're
Right,
not
but so
selling
is a
the product,
documentary,
right?
that's First Amendment.
No, it's not. If it's a commercial production, you can't just stand on, it depends on your definition of commercial production.
You're selling the
Commercial
product.
production is for sale, so it's commercial production, it's not a First Amendment thing.
Well, a movie is First Amendment, they,
Content, not process.
okay. So my understanding is,
Don't tell me that
Museum
production
starts for
crew
sale.
take over Main Street and simply show up on Main Street and start doing it, say,
no,
you can't
no, I'm
constitute
not
a
saying
First
that.
Amendment issue.
But if 60 Minutes came, they come with a pretty big crew, but
Yes, but
that's
they couldn't set up on Main Street.
depending upon what they were doing.
Exactly, if it's news production and it's news, and you can't restrict it reasonably. But if it's commercial production, just say that about it.
I never
So
heard that
what-
distinction.
Well, you never talked to me before.
So what, like, for
Um,
example, the Today Show did that thing with Santa
I didn't
Claus.
hear what you said.
So for example, the Today Show did that thing with Santa Claus in Pioneer Plaza, whatever, Cooperstown. If that were to happen here in Muller Plaza, would they need a permit?
I can guarantee you that they got a permit from the village of Cooperstown.
Okay.
Guarantee.
Okay, everybody?
Does it have to do with the
I have one
size?
more question. My understanding is if you're standing on public property, you can take a picture, record the sound of any person, place, or thing.
Yeah, and there's no expectation of privacy. That's right.
Okay.
But if you take a picture through their window, it is.
That's, yeah, I'm not suggesting that.
And
You
no,
can't have a drone peek in their window.
What your expression of the Constitution as it's currently interpreted is absolutely correct. There is no expectation of privacy in public.
So
But
number
there may be no expectation of
603.
privacy, but you can't use it for commercial purposes. You never use it for purpose. It's an image of a person who's not newsworthy. If I took a picture of you on Main Street, standing there, I could not put you in a commercial for Square's ice cream store. Right. Because that's a violation of civil rights because they're using your image for money.
Correct. I got you, okay.
But you take a picture, post it on the other side of print as news. If someone's doing something on Main Street and you take a picture of it, then that's perfectly okay.
So did I violate the law when I did that stand-up today?
I don't know what you did. You said you did the stand-up. I don't know what that
You
means.
know, I did do a comedy routine, you know,
No, that's what I'm
just
saying.
like,
You
the
did just stood on the
introduction.
corner and did a stand-up. I don't know
Yeah,
what
and
that
I
means.
stood there and did an introduction to a news story.
Right.
That's not a violation.
No, it's
The way I read this, it seemed like it would have been.
not. Again, if they wanted to find except for news collection, that's, you can do that, then you can, definitions, everything.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
So-
excited to hear this.
Yeah, so Craig brought up a good point on 106-2. Like filming in
Well, this, any district allowing commercial, industrial, residential, or other, why not just make that anywhere in the city? Because you're kind of describing everything. It doesn't specifically call out mixed use. That's another type of problem that we have. We don't actually have any industrial. So if the intent is to cover the entire city, then we just simplify that.
Building in the city shall be permitted subject to the following conditions.
within the city boundaries.
That's the intent, it seems to be, is. But I mean, another key question, what about indoors? I mean, to Dallas point about mother and daughter in a movie, commercially produced movie, filming, drinking tea, and discussing something at their dining room table at some private property, it's indoors, you would never know what's happening. That requires a permit for this, right?
It does.
Right, and we would know what's happening if they started bringing all types of equipment onto the site.
Right, but if it was just, someone like Don, a one-person setup, or doing very, Sequel Media is not necessarily a huge production. I imagine every scene some scenes might be very simple, where it's just a conversation over coffee in someone's dining room. If that's something that technically seems to fall under this?
Seems to.
It would, the issue is whether there is a commercially produced, whether it's a commercially produced thing. If it's, I think if it fly below the radar screen, it might fly below the radar screen, and if someone's made an application and said, it's gonna be totally inside, I'm doing it on my iPhone, you know, I'm making a TikTok, theoretically making a TikTok would be something that would fall into this.
Right. I think of the entire movies that made millions of dollars that were shot in the house. Outside.
And like student, like a lot of student work, and like how do the campuses?
Students' work is not commercial.
Well, I thought of that, but like sometimes it could be. And also like, what if SUNY, you know, they do things, promotional, whatever, do they need a permit to film on their own
They're not a
campus?
commercial enterprise, they're a not-for-profit
Okay.
organization.
Okay.
But again, my job is to tell you what my opinion is of interpreting the statute.
Yeah.
You can change the statute to read whatever you want as long as it passes the Constitution.
Okay.
You can't say that Don can't stand on the corner and take a picture of people without a permit. Well, you could say it, but it wouldn't last for you.
Okay.
You guys gotta decide. If you wanna say, unless it's done with an iPhone. I think you should have a production permit requirement.
How? But we kind of did it backwards. We came up with a permit before we came up with this legislation, so like,
And you can keep things the way they are.
again, I think this is a good start. As David said prior to this, that if you get too granular on this, we're gonna drive ourselves crazy. But notifying residents is a good point. Because if I all of a sudden saw tractor trailer showing up, 45 people across the street,
And it was like your kid's graduation party or something, you might be like, okay,
so just adding 10 more vehicles to our street would be
big impact, right?
a big impact. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, having that. I think on public property though, I just want to make sure that we cover all of the city's property, public property. Because we own so much land outside of the city boundaries.
Oh, okay.
And that's why in section 106-3, 4 lines down, that's why I said are owned by the city.
Can this apply outside of the city limits, the ordinance of the city limits?
We could require it on any land that is owned by the city.
Correct.
But to do so otherwise at this point, they'd probably be trespassing anyway. We do allow pedestrians and things, but only pedestrians, you know, like in a reservoir
Right.
area, but that's specifically authorized. So again, I think if you have a permit, the local law could include a request for use outside, but that would not necessarily limit the town of Oneonta from having a separate distinct permitting process for operation in town.
Right. But when they're on city property, that's the way I was looking at it. If they're on city property, then we have a right as the legislature to.
That's what I'm
what
saying,
they're
is that
actually
there'd be dual jurisdiction, because we can say what they can do on our property, but if our property's in the town of Oneonta, then whoever's in the town of Oneonta have jurisdiction over who's doing film production, even if it's on our property. See what I'm saying?
So if someone filmed in a reservoir, city-owned property, town money on it, and we caught them and did that permit, they could theoretically be subject to this penalty, $500 per day.
Well, let's not, when we get into penalties, it's another whole issue. Who's gonna issue the ticket? Is the ticket returnable in city court? How are we gonna, and who are you gonna serve it on? The producer, the actor?
That's all the questions.
Enforcement is a real issue. And one of the things I was thinking about is it might be good to have an administrative penalty, like we use in certain other areas of our code, that's trying to get it prosecuted in city court, get it enforced in city court could be a long process or a lot of money to our city prosecutor without a lot of benefit.
Right, and after changing what we had in the ethics for this $25 or whatever it was that we had in the ethics, I wanted to bring this up, and Gary and I were talking about before the start of the meeting, is that $500, we should eliminate that, we shouldn't have that. And
Oh, yeah.
that should be in the fee schedule, right?
Yeah.
So anything that we have, that should be over there in the fee schedule.
Yeah, violations are different than fee schedules, so.
Right,
So
so,
if you want a $500 violation, then that should be in the statute.
Well,
But the question I had is how is it going to be enforced?
well,
Supposing somebody violates it, how are we going to collect $500?
so code enforcement, if someone's out of compliance, they issue,
This has nothing to do with the fire code.
I know, but don't we set those? Don't we set those fees?
The administrative fees we do, is then it's taxed on the real property where it's located. There will be no real property located here.
so would the city clerk's office, would the city's clerk's office be able to collect that? Do you collect,
Again, somebody violates it.
sure,
What's the process?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
You can't fine people without due process of law. You can have an administrative penalty without due process of law, but if you fine somebody, they have to have an opportunity to be heard before a body and a determination made.
so if I'm understanding you, this is just a matter of changing the word from fine to administrative.
Well, the question is who then enforce it? Is it, because you want to do it through code enforcement, then code enforcement is the mechanism that's already there. Okay, but
So let's flesh this out. Who overwatches the film production company to begin with?
exactly. We have,
Which department is gonna oversee that?
exactly, police and fire, you see what I'm saying, is that right now, you can put that penalty in there, and it's there,
Well, who's
but
overseeing?
in the absence of something further, the only enforcing body would be the police, through giving them a violation, because we have a provision in our code that says any violation of any provision in this code is a violation of the fee of $1,000, so the cops could give them a ticket. Question is, who you give the ticket to would then be returnable in city court. And once it was in city court, the question is, what would you do if they never showed up?
I have a follow-up question for Anthony about what you said.
Can I get her something?
Okay, well,
You see what I'm saying?
no, I do. So who do we think should oversee this? We actually never had that conversation doing the permit.
I mean, the experience is that most of these people are legitimate people, and they have legitimate people doing real things, and if they made the application, they're actually serious, and it goes to insurance bond for $2 million, then they're legitimate, and they tend to do things like that, so there are responsible people. But maybe in the application or in the permit, we gotta say, who's the responsible party for any violations of the statute, and make that part of the application process.
Well, and how do we serve people who don't get a permit at all?
Well, again, how do we arrest people who don't follow the law at all?
Okay.
We assign someone the authority to do that. Either the police, or code enforcement, or someone who
Right.
decides how to do it.
So if the common council was to oversee this, meaning the complaints, that's what would be generated out of this, is that if the complaint came before complaint came before the town council, does the town council have the ability to hear those complaints and make a rule?
You could, but trust me, you do not want to become a judicial body.
How about the Board of Public Service?
You would have to amend their power, because that power is not authorized to in the charter and the statute.
Okay.
Same with road enforcement. But you make it, again, all I was saying is, I haven't thought this through, but all I knew.
If you own a property in the city of Oleana, right, and you don't live here, what do you have to hire? Somebody local who manages the property and oversees the property and so couldn't they have somebody that is local that they're required to then?
I mean, there is a way to do it, that would be the requirement of course of bond. Just like the contractors that.
Sure, no, I agree, but who will oversee this? I think you raised a very good point tonight. It's like, out of all the discussions that we had last year, creating that permit, we never once talked about who's actually gonna oversee all this. To your point, you're right. 99% of the time, the companies come in, they do exactly what they say they're gonna do, but for some reason, one doesn't. What are we falling back on? So if we went with Katie's suggestion of the Board of Public Service, we could review this, we would have to change their mission statement.
They don't have the authority to do that. I mean, nobody has the authority to do that, except the police department. The police department has inherent authority for the violation of any provision of code. Enforce it. I mean, the answer is you find it there. All I'm saying is to be aware of the position that you're putting the police in.
Well, within that section, I like B and C. It was A, I didn't think we should have a defined amount because what we were dealing with in the ethics. Because we would have to change that every now and then. Even on this Ontario Fire Department, or City of Ontario filming permit, it says failure to comply with the condition may result in suspension / revocation of the permit and deny or / cancellation of the pursuit. So other than having a fire prevention officer inspect the site prior, it doesn't actually say. So yes, we could leave it in there, but we need to flesh out who's actually gonna oversee this. Who's gonna oversee the violation? You're saying it's definitely not codes and the only department.
No.
Could be.
Right now, the Oleana Police Department has the authority. And they have the power to charge. You know, we have an anti-fighting statute in our code, and it says that it's subject to a fine. And if somebody takes a swing at somebody downtown, the cops can give them a ticket based on that, and it goes to the city. If there was a violation of code, the police department could make a determination if there was a violation of the film permit statute, and they could ticket somebody, which would be returnable in Illinois on the city court. My concern would be, and my concern is how enforceable that would be. We may still want to leave it just the way it is, and I'm not trying to make it worse than it already is, but it just should be clear as to what the process is for enforcement.
Right, which C of that same section says that if we find you in violation, you can't come back within 18 months.
Right.
So we have that.
But the question then determines who makes the determination as to whether they violated or they want to fight it in court. There has to be some determiner
Sure.
as to whether they violated.
Well, do you feel comfortable enough that we leave this as is and move forward, or?
All I want to do is raise the issue. If, frankly, I'm okay with it. I think if there's a violation and we can't enforce it, then we'll address it. I'm just trying to make sure that OPD knows that they're the ones who are going to be on the line.
Kate, Shannon?
My brain has hit an impasse with regard to enforcement of this. I mean, I think that it makes sense to have that in there, but without creating weird, you know?
Yeah, I think that we should even say, like that, it will be handled by OPD for the current, like, for the time. So we can
Figure out.
maybe add a little bit more to this, but I don't know where else we would send it.
Right. I mean, yeah, because it can be like code enforcement on top of everything else that they're doing. Can we give DPW the authority to read tickets?
No.
Okay. Just because they're out and about, and they're like, hey, what's wrong here?
I think it's good, I would just, add right now that OPD currently manages this and that's okay. Otherwise,
Yeah,
pretty good to go.
so are we gonna think about this one for 2 weeks? Are we happy?
I'm good with it because that's what we're all talking about, on a case-by-case basis. The fact that it hasn't happened yet, probably will not happen in the future. But we have to have something in there, and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable moving this forward. I like the changes that we've come up with
Yeah.
tonight.
So we're gonna add notifying the residents,
Yes.
14 days notice, giving them the opportunity to oppose or just comment.
I would kind of like to add on where it says television, where no commercial produced movie or a television program, I'd like to say, except for legitimate news collection or something like that, except for news collection.
Except for news media,
But it's news collection.
news collection.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it could be in
Can we
many different
just-
formats.
Can we just add to the legislative intent portion a sentence that says, none of these provisions shall apply to the legitimate collection of news?
I like that. But the problem is the intent, it's not the statute. It says
Oh.
what you mean in the statute, but then there's the statute. Let's say, and it said how we got here, whereas the statute is the statute.
Okay,
So you are good having it within the intent for the news collection? Where do you think that it should go?
But let's ask the media person. Would you like to have, except for legitimate?
Yeah, I would put it in the, you're both, I thought you were looking at me.
I was looking right directly between you.
So you're asking, should it be in, 106(2)(k) or? Or 106-3?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, so section 8, so that,
oh yeah, public,
Yeah.
public.
I would put it in 106-3.
A,
Would it have to go in 2 ways, all right?
and 106-2, because like,
Just
Yeah,
one
yeah,
on private
Property.
property.
Story in the morning,
right,
you know, the city's permission to film there.
right, true.
Yeah.
Carrie, you do that?
Can I potentially suggest under 1063 F dash F, 106-3 F. We have the very last sentence is the town council may also extend the hours of filming, but could we also have it say limit or extend? That allows us to be like case by case about it.
I'd rather add that, yeah. Limit or extend, so ends. It's that kind of language can get you in trouble if you don't have both.
Do I understand correctly, that the town council will be voting to approve every private and public application for filming permit?
I don't think we figured that out.
Based on F in each of the dash two and dash three. There's an E in dash two and F and dash three, I think. It says county council shall have the authority to approve as approved. Otherwise, it does not say.
Yeah,
Right, and I think we were up in the air because of the public comment period. Who would, if we're not approving it, who would they submit comments to?
I'm just thinking that, I think this came about from discussions with Greg Klein and the film commission about how to make it simpler for people to do filming in the city. This seems to be as complicated or more complicated than what we currently have. And given that each of the films that have been done and approved by the council so far, the application timeframe has been pretty compressed. I don't know, I think we might be just creating more
Yeah, that's a good
more
point.
of a process, we're creating a process that's gonna create more issues.
That's a good point.
This is like a general 10,000 foot view.
I'm actually good with the common council overseeing this, because I think back to Katie's example of if we have a film production crew show up on Kearney Street, and you get 14, 15, 20 people on there, it literally would disrupt our small street. And so having that large of a production company get on our small street, it would provide an opportunity for the common council to know about it, and also for the residents to know about it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, so far, it's been a great production company,
Absolutely.
no problem, they've been really welcomed, but if that could be not the case, especially if we begin to open up as Eagle County as they're trying to do, that could be not the case at some point. But to your point, can I ask about the intent of a couple of these things, which are the 30 days thing makes sense to me, but why the not twice in 2 weeks thing?
30 days, you're talking about 106-2C,
No, I'm sorry, the operational limitations,
right?
it's D, 106-2D. Not to conduct at the same location for more than 30 days with any 12-month period. I'm not sure why that. Because I'm just thinking about like Lutz, right, where they just did filming down there. If they want to use that warehouse every 2 weeks and that there's no residential complaint and the property owner thinks it's fine, then I don't know why, to your point, I don't know why we would create a hurdle to that. And then same with the not conducted at the same location within 14 days, like, I just don't know why those, and maybe I could get behind them if I didn't know why, but I just don't know why.
Might have been because you kind of conducting a different type of business on that premise, than what was originally zoned for.
Okay, that's interesting. I feel
So
like,
if you're on private property, you're in a residential neighborhood, you're allowing commercial produced filming to happen for more than 30 days, then you're changing the definition of that residential neighborhood.
I mean, we've opened up the opportunity for the neighbors to say, we don't want this to happen anymore. So it's maybe not necessary for us to define it in this legislation.
I don't know anything, I don't know. 30 days? I don't
Well, and
know
it's
how common that's.
It's 30 days within a calendar year. So they could do 5 days at a time,
Right, so maybe,
6 times.
right, maybe.
Once every other month, and that doesn't seem very excessive to me.
Filming shall not be conducted at the same location for more than 30 days, 30 calendar days within a 12-month period. Consecutive, if we just put in consecutive,
Sure. Cause that would make sense, like, yeah, you can't be here for a month, you know?
consecutive calendar days.
But I mean, yeah, I don't know where you would film. I mean,
I
unless
see
we're
what you were
getting
saying
a
before, I
major.
actually didn't read it that way, I thought it was 30 consecutive days.
Yeah, I did too, when I read it first, and then I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, I mean, unless we're getting like a major motion picture, I don't think anyone would do that, but you never know.
You know,
If there was a series, like,
Long
Housewives.
RSVU.
Housewives of Oneonta,
Mm.
you know,
Which we should totally.
they would have trouble with these regulations.
Right, that
But-
makes sense.
But I don't think they have a very large crew,
Yes.
you know, they probably, I don't know how they do it, but I imagine it'd be relatively small, very relatively cheap, you know, they.
We could
Oh.
separate this somewhere, going,
I feel like,
film permits is gonna be our last thing.
oh yeah.
And I
Is
go
it?
down
Yeah,
to
yeah.
my basket.
Oh, I
no,
thought we were
because I
gonna
have
get
questions
the
about
fees.
Okay.
the
We go home
fees,
so
man.
that she can ask me the question and then I can go.
Throw like a couple more questions about all this, but let's think about for next time.
Okay.
Seems like it's coming back. Property must be of adequate size, who determines that? No heavy equipment, what's heavy, and travel on local streets to the site is restricted to 7 AM to 10 PM. That seems difficult, certainly difficult to enforce. If they're driving on a public street after 10 PM before 7 AM, they're kind of like any other vehicle for a license, right? So I just don't know if that's necessary, that much. I think the intent is probably if they're
I'm good with striking it out.
caravan or something.
Right, if there was a caravan.
I mean, that's
Can't
not limited to
define
me,
it.
you know, filming on local streets, because that's part of the next section.
Yeah, no, I'm good with striking number 4.
But just generally trying to eliminate ambiguity, you know, there's a more specific way to, define what that means.
So we're going with 45 consecutive, add a notification requirement. We're adding limit or extend to both 1062E and 1063F. And then we're adding this OPD thing for penalties for offenses. And we'll talk about it again in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We're gonna think about who determines adequate size and what is heavy equipment. Sounds good to me. This is the only committee that I have a full report for. So
Yes,
many
it's
factors.
counting.
We're not up yet, are we up? Have we adjourned?
Yeah.
David, you can go.
No, I have a question for him.
Oh, you do?
Well, I'll ask you a question.
Oh,
This is relevant to the filming.
Well,
Shannon, do you have anything else?
Thank you.
this has been really great.
Thank you for letting me go.
wait, are we finished?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm finished.
Are we off?